Hey, welcome everybody to today's episode of Warrior Women. I am so excited to introduce you to my new friend, Keira. We're in a networking group together, and this is how we met. And I was instantly drawn to her energy and her light and her goodness. And I cannot wait to share her with you. So Keira, if you don't mind doing a brief introduction, and then we will get into this interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Keira Brinton, and I'm a mom to 5 kids. I have 5 children, ages 8 to 18. I live in Idaho, and I am a book medium. So like mediums actually can hear from the other side and receive messages, I use my gifts as a medium to help people hear their most important books. And I help them channel them through with so much ease. We write the most important things that need to come through. I then own Joan of Arc Publishing, which is a publishing house that publishes books that change the world. So I am committed to radically changing the face of the planet with powerful messages that I believe they're just divinely given. They are inspired. These are messages that people haven't heard before. They're messages to shake things up, break systems, and change the world. So those are the things that I do. I'm also an author. I'm a podcaster. I'm a speaker. And I have a YouTube channel that every morning and every night I put out activation sessions that help people get activated into flow state.
Well, that is one thing that if my listeners here, if you do anything, go and do that after you watch this interview. Keira, you have helped me so much in my day-to-day by these prayers and aligning myself with what God wants for me. And it's helped me quiet my ego and just move out of the way. And that's part of why I'm sitting here with you today. And I adore you, and I am so excited to share with my community you as a warrior woman. And yeah,
I'm so happy you watch those videos. You make videos and you're like, I hope people watch these.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
So one of the things that I wanted to touch on today was, as I work with women, and what I do is I help women work through some of their issues through the intimacy in their marriage. And I love this work because the intimacy or sexuality exposes pretty much all of your insecurities. And it's really just a gateway into the inside of your soul and really getting to the root issue. And I will help you shortcut, not you, but the listeners here, shortcut a lot of work that I've done for myself and also for some of my clients, that it comes down to trust. And when a woman feels like she can't trust her partner, many times, not all of the time, but many times, it's really just exposing that she doesn't trust herself, and she never has, and she wasn't taught to. And so I want to talk to you about this because as I've listened to your, clips of your podcast and your daily YouTube videos and your stories on Instagram, because I just love that you're putting so much content out there to help women and to help anybody really, that you really have a divine gift for learning how or knowing how to trust yourself and trusting your gut. So how do you do that?
Oh, well, I wasn't always really good at it. And I think that's actually why I am good at it now.
Oh, I love that you said that. Thank you. It gives me hope for myself and for, I know, many of my clients, so please keep going.
So if I were to go back, my whole life was hard, actually. I grew up with a lot of sexual abuse. I was sexually abused by my grandpa for years. He lived in our home, rough, right? And so when you go through that type of abuse, your gut says this isn't right, but there's nobody protecting me, and this is somebody who is supposed to be safe. You actually discredit your gut because you have to. There's no other option. It's not like 9-year-old Keira could protect herself from a grown man. So I had to discredit my gut,
Mm.
which told me it wasn't okay. Right.
Right.
So it's like that piece got super clouded, and also it atrophied. It atrophied because I couldn't use it in those situations. But the gift, I mean, there's so many gifts in my abuse. I believe there's so much gifts in abuse. And the gift is that God became my only thing. So it was like, if my people and my parents didn't know what was happening, so I don't have any blame towards them, but like they also weren't protecting me, right? So it's like, here's the people who are to keep me safe aren't, and I can't keep myself safe. So God became like the ground, and the only ground I had to stand on. And so that is where I would say, like, why do I have a book that's called God is My Business Plan? And why is my YouTube channel called that? Because like God is my business plan. God is just my life plan. God was like always and has always been the only rock that I could stand on. So throughout my life, getting married really young, having 5 kids. I had 5 kids in 10 years, and which was probably my favorite time of life. Like I actually would nurse and have babies all day long if I didn't have to actually raise them. But then you have to raise them, it's like a whole different thing. Now we're in the raising. But like those were that time of my life, I began to wake up a sense of trust in my knowingness. And it was in these little pockets. So it's almost like when someone starts to work out a muscle, you don't go, hey, I need you to do 50-pound reps. You're like, start with 5 pounds. And so I feel like I was given these little moments of, like, one time I was at the park and I had a really strong inspiration, like, leave the park right now. And I was like, "Ugh, no, like I had 3 little boys under the age of 4. Okay. Like
Oh,
they were,
girl.
my boys came out like wild monkeys. You know what I mean? Like they're climbing to the top of the playground at age 2. They're just wild. And I'm like, no, I'm not leaving the park. I'm exhausted. I finally get to sit here. 30 seconds later, one of them breaks their arm. And I was like, interesting, interesting. So then 2 months later, I'm at another place. It's like, leave this place. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And then another one broke their arm. We had 3 broken arms in 6 months. And every time I knew to leave and I didn't. And so that it was in the not listening that my trust grew. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. I have chills up and down my arms because I can think of instances for myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't take it as clues that I can trust myself until just sitting here right now.
And that's really like, I'm trying to decide if I share this. But for a really long time, I knew that I needed to leave my marriage. And for a really long time, I didn't listen because I was raised that you don't leave a marriage. And also, like, I had 5 kids and I was like, we will make this work for our 5 kids. And, it created a lot of problems in my body because I wasn't listening to my truth. It created actual like physical ailments, extreme amounts of suffering. And in the not honoring, when I did leave my marriage, I made a commitment that I would never not honor my knowingness again. And that's why trusting myself is a non-negotiable now.
Oh, I love the way you just put that. That's going to go in a quote that I'm going to keep forever. That's a non-negotiable because, I follow some other coaches and things, and they talk about non-negotiables. And I feel like getting the non-negotiable correct and rooted in alignment with God is crucial. Because if your non-negotiable is, I wake up at 4 a.m. every day, right? And that's your non-negotiable. That's pretty surface.
Mhm.
right? And so how do you get to the root? And there it is. I will not negotiate with my gut. And I heard something today that was really helpful too. If there is problematic behavior and your gut led you there, it wasn't your gut, it was trauma. And so that's the work I do, is helping people figure out the difference between their alignment with God, their gut, and the trauma motivated intuition.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm sure this is work that you do as well. And if any listeners right now, I hope that they take that and chew on it, because nobody gets out unscathed. We all have trauma, and that trauma births sometimes problematic behavior that can lead you to relationships that don't work. And whether that's a marriage relationship or keeping you in friendship relationships, or whether that's a parental relationship that needs to have better boundaries, or whatever the case may be. But you were led there by maybe some faulty intuition that's been birthed by trauma, which
It's powerful.
I have, that sorting that out is life's work. And that's the growing work, right? That's the work that progresses us and matures us and leads us to the pathway in which we're designed to go.
Yeah. What's interesting is I have a trick that I use to understand, is this my knowingness? Is this God guiding me? Is this fear? Because I think those of us who've been through abuse, actually listening to the gut is a really foreign experience because of how I shared that, right? Like you had to discredit the gut.
Right.
Then fear actually comes in as like, is this a gut feeling, right? Like, oh, I'm afraid. So is this me, like my gut telling me to like not be here? It's this whole unwinding of understanding, is this my inner intuition? Is this God guiding me? Or is this my fear reflex? And so I have this trick that I use for myself, where if it comes in over and over and over and over and over, like a replay, right? Like it's so loud, I can't think of anything else. It's just so distracting. That is not my gut. And that is not God. God is clear. God is clean. And it is a one-time thing. And you're going to hear it and you're going to know it and you're going to feel it. And if you start to question it, then you get into a mess. But if something comes in and it's just like running your brain like a radio playing over and over and over, it's not your gut. And that right there is the thing that gets us so confused, because it overpowers our mind.
I'm almost like, I don't know if you saw, I'm almost getting emotional hearing you say that, because that right there it's a muscle, right? Like I like to relate things to my clients and to my children about how there's things that we think, we look at other people and we see them and we're like, oh, they haven't figured out. It's like looking at somebody at the gym and being like, oh, they were just born that way. It's like, clearly that is not born from genetics. Maybe that's helped them, but that's coming honestly by hard work, determination, and grit. Yeah. And that is the same exact recipe for what you just described. It is a muscle. It is knowing this, like a distinct difference between fear and intuition that is born out of God. And so I love the way you put that. And I can't wait actually to go back and listen to that and download it in permanently. I might listen to it a few times, and I hope the listeners do as well, because that was powerful, powerful stuff right there.
And I only know that because fear was my strongest muscle.
How could it not be, given your history? Right. And I know that's going to be so relatable for people listening, because 1 in 4 women has been sexually traumatized, if not abused. And a lot of them become my clients and are people who tend to follow like self-help or self-development channels like this one. So thank you for being so vulnerable, first of all, and second of all, for your wisdom. That was so powerful for me too.
Well, I think this is how we make a difference, right? Like I could like pretend that I have all my shit together, but I don't. And also,
Neither do I.
right? Like I've been through a hell of a lot. And
Mhm.
also like all of it has made me have grit. And that is why I am a warrior, because I have faced so many trials, traumas, adversities. And every time I find myself getting stronger, I find deeper healing inside of myself. And it all made me a seeker. So why do all these people who've been through abuse follow self-help and follow people like you? Because it made us seekers.
Hmm.
That's the gift in abuse for me, is that it turned me into a lifelong seeker. Like I will do what it takes to heal. I will do what it takes to transform, because I refuse to live in that pain. I refuse to live in that suffering. And so, it's like it's the coal to my fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I call it the crucible.
Mm.
And in the work I do, there's not really a better um, analogy for what it is that I'm seeking. And it is painful. Who seeks out the fire to burn off all of the things that don't belong? And you know who does? Seekers, learners, growers, people who want to progress. And I hope to inspire that in people, because let me tell you, being comfortable is a dangerous place. It is dangerous. And if you find yourself comfortable, and I don't mean to say that you have to be in turmoil, right? Like that, or that you should, blow a perfectly good working thing up in order to grow, because that's not necessary. Life will give it to you. And if you don't feel like you have it, then you have unexamined stuff that needs to be addressed. And it is disorganizing to start that process. But when you have somebody by your side, like you, or somebody who like hires a coach like me, which I'm always taking clients, right? Like there are definitely people who are trained to do this work. I have a coach. I have had many coaches for different things, whether it's health, mental wellness, spiritual coaches. Like this space is ripe with people who have been gifted traumas that have given them, like you said, this grit, this determination, and these muscles that have been, like, I don't go to the gym and look for somebody who's in worse off than I am. I go and I look for people who have the grit that I need, that I need to follow, and be like, I mean, I will never forget a friend I went to high school with, and she's teaching a class. I went to the gym and I remember walking up to her and being like, what do you do? I know I'm doing the same exercise. So clearly I'm doing something wrong. What is it that you're doing? And I'm like, oh, it came down to food, of course. Like, so, I'm like, okay, then what are you eating? So it's like, it's not that she's better than me or that you're better than anybody else. It's just that, on this particular pathway, you have exercised this muscle, which makes you rare.
Mm. Thank you. And I'll say this. So I'm always about collapsing time. Like, how do we do things faster? How do we get to where we need to go faster?
Yes.
And for me, that's always with support. So like currently right now, like I have a tantric coach, which we can talk about that because that's a whole piece of my life. I have a trauma coach who works with me whenever my trauma flares up. I have a coach that helps me with my teenagers, because
Love
it's
that.
it's a heck of a journey right now. We're only 7 months out of my, marriage ending, and I've got kids who like need help. So I have a therapist who guides me on how to help them.
Oh,
And I feel like I have another one okay. So then I'm business partners with Evan Carmichael, but he's really just like a really high level coach.
I love
Yeah,
Evan.
like that's
He's
like
so
five,
great.
right? Like that's
Mhm.
like five right now. And that's only right now. And at any given time, you will never find me without support, because I value support so deeply, because this is how we collapse time. We collapse time by getting support from people who've already done it.
Mhm.
Figure it out on our own, but it's going to take so damn long.
I
Or we
agree.
can collapse time and hire someone who knows how to do it.
I hear you. And, it feels like it's so out of reach. And it's really not. Like, my health coach, like I've lost 35 pounds, and it has come, and it wasn't hard. It just, because I had to get clear. I had to be clearer, and that clarity and sorting it out and outsourcing, like, wow, so valuable. And like I told you, I have a spiritual coach helping me through the traumas of life, and I have a business coach who helps me with my business and keeps me on track. And and that's why I love to be able to offer that. If if your relationship is out of alignment and you don't have support, you're going to feel hopeless in every aspect of your life. And I've coached people whose marriages didn't make it, but they did, and so did their spouse. So it's okay, because that wasn't to be in alignment. Sometimes you have to take the blessing and then move forward, right? And then most of the marriages do, though. So and that's what is just so beautiful about doing this work, is that it's never the same. And that support piece, wow, I will carry that with me. Support.
Yeah, it's just support. And if you want to go do big things and you want to go live your deepest purpose, you got to have a team. You just have to have a team. You have to have a team who believes in you, who sees you for who you are. I mean, that's like my greatest gift as a book medium, is like, I see people for who they really are, like not the person who's walking down the street. Like, I see their souls and I see what they're here to do. And in my seeing them, that comes through. We just need one person to actually see us, to help us actually expand into that growth. It's beautiful. I love it. And I think, bringing it back to the gut and the following is ask God to show you who your coach is. That's what I do. Like, God, I need a new coach. Boom. They just show up like that, because that's my request. I need a coach who's going to support me like this, 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 and this. Can you bring them to me? And so I've never gone out looking for a coach. They always roll into my world.
Yes. Oh, that has been my experience as well. And
Right.
once you get into that flow of being able to understand that God isn't afflicting you, He is not out to hurt you or to try you. The fallen world in which we exist will just provide that it already. He is here to support, and He supports through his willing listeners. And I'm a willing listener, and I can sense that you are a willing listener. And absolutely, it's always come from this authentic, natural, flowing, giving space where they just manifest themselves. And I do believe that is the way that God works. And being able to get that right will bless every aspect of your life. Understanding who God is, or if you don't believe in God, source, power, creation, creator, whatever it is, we came from somewhere, right? And the person that put that into motion has our best interest at heart, even if it isn't a crucible that singes all of the unnecessary things off, right?
Well, that's so beautifully said. Mm-hmm.
Well, Keira, I know this time has gone by so quickly, but I would love for people to know where to find you. How can my community find you?
Yes. So easiest way is Instagram. Just go follow me, Keira
That's where I
Brinton.
found you.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's like, and I'm in my DMs. Like, I don't have my assistant in there, so send me a DM. I'm always answering those, because to me, I hate emails. Don't email Keira. Okay.
I'm the same way. DM me, text me,
Yeah.
Marco Polo me, but don't email me.
Don't email me. Yeah. So just send me a DM. You can check out my website, but I'm gonna be honest, like, I move so quickly in my business that it's never up to date. So you can look at it. It's a pretty website. That's great. You can also follow me at my publishing Instagram, which is JOA Publishing, and see the books that we publish. We publish amazing books that every book we publish, everyone needs to have. They're just all amazing. So those are like the fastest ways. Free content, go on YouTube every morning, every night. I put out a video, and my podcast goes out every week. So I've been doing a podcast for 4 years. It started out as the Awaken podcast, and it turned into the Sacred Writing podcast. This week, the Sacred Writing podcast finalized. Next week, my new podcast or iteration is called I Was Born to Do This. And
Love
it's
that.
so fire. So
I love that. I chills again, that name. I get it. It like you're drawing your people to you, and you're a special woman, warrior woman.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Keira, so much for coming on my show today and for gifting my community with your wisdom. And I would love to have you back if you'd like. And this series, I'm going to let it go where it needs to go. And I feel like you should be a regular.
I will be on anytime. This was a blast.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, anytime. Thank you so much, Keira.